Hey guys, welcome to ConvoCourses podcast. In this episode, we're going to be talking about privacy from the perspective of the NIST framework, risk management framework. I'm going to give you an overview of some of the stuff I've been putting together for a privacy course I'm developing for ConvoCourses. But first, before I start, I'm going to look at a couple of resumes that I've been kind of putting off. This is something I do from time to time. Somebody will send me their resume and I'll look through it. And let's get into the first one here. The very first one is I changed the names, just so you know. This first one here, let me see if I can show you my screen real quick. Testing, volume, test. Okay, yeah, I still got volume. Okay, good. All right, so now if you're just listening, I'll just explain what I'm looking at here and talk you through how to make a better resume. I am looking at a Taylor Flow. The names have been changed to protect the innocent. And she sent me a resume, and she is a certified nurse assistant who is trying to transfer into IT, some kind of IT, namely trying to get into risk management framework and be an information system security officer or something like that. So she sent me a resume, and it's a page, and it doesn't really have a lot of stuff on it, to be honest with you. It's one page long, and half of it has a summary, has a skill set, has experience in work, and it's not filled out very well at all. This is not going to get a job, not in information technology. Just being completely honest here, but this doesn't have anything in it. Now, I'm just kind of glancing through it, and she does have Security Plus, which she said she took in April 2020, and a Linux Plus that she took in 2020. So, yeah, this is not good. So first of all, I changed the top to put the name on the very top, of course. The next part, she didn't have like a title. I put a title here, just junior cybersecurity analyst. But honestly, I don't even know if you could really put this there, because I'm not seeing anything so far that would indicate that you are in this role or have ever been in any kind of role like this. So I don't know. We'll come back to that one. But you want to put a title up top, and then an email, of course, and then a phone number, which is pretty standard. In the summary, she has knowledgeable with 0 to 1 year experience in risk management framework, system development lifecycle, HIPAA and application NIST standards, aptitude for good customer service, excellent communication and presentation skills. All right. So this would be fine if you had something to back it up. The 0 to 1 experience suggests that I would just put 1 year's experience. If it's 1 year experience, put 1 year of experience. 0 to 1 doesn't really make sense to put in the top. So if it's 1 year, I would put 1 year. Skill set, she has familiar with risk management framework. Okay. Experience with cryptography. Okay. What can we do with this? This is basically a blank sheet. What would I do? So here's the thing. My wife is actually a certified nursing assistant, and it can be a hard job. And I don't know if she still does this, but she has hospice aid here, has work experience, and then she has top group tech from April to June 2020. So April, May, June. So that's like 3 months of experience. So, all right. And then under top group tech, it says assisted in identifying new viruses and malware. Okay. This is not, we don't know the impact. We don't know how many systems it was. How big was this company? This is not looking good. So what I would do is I would go for a help desk job. So I'm going to the top of the resume, and I'm just going to go ahead and put whatever position that she had here in top tech group, I would put that on top. So I'm assuming, let me see, what did she do? She assisted with some malware, she evaluated security controls, and she detected vulnerabilities. All right, maybe junior cybersecurity, but we need to really fill this out. So let's spend some time filling this part out here. So this was last year. Let's put instead of assisted, let's just go right and let's make this an impactful statement. Let's say identified new malware, and then so what would we have to go into the impact of this? What was the impact of identifying the malware? So if you identified malware, you potentially stopped ransomware, you potentially stopped a Trojan, you know, on how many systems? You know, I don't know all that information, so I'm just gonna have to guess what the impact might have been, and then I'll just explain to her like why I'm putting this information in there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say identified malware on 15 systems, 15 critical systems. And I'll explain all this stuff to her, so she, you know, I don't want her to lie on here, but I just want to show her like this is the kind of impact you want to see on here. You don't want to just have a bullet where it doesn't even explain like what's going on. You want to go into details to show, hey, this was I understand how to find malware. You know, you might even want to put what tool you use to find the malware. You might even put like identified malware using what tool could you use to let's say Sophos or something. You could say something like Sophos, or you could say what could you use? McAfee. You could use McAfee, Sophos, Symantec. That's just another thing you could do to say how you identified the malware. But let's keep going. Identified malware on 15 critical systems. Potentially bypassing. Wait, no. Okay, let's see. I don't have enough information here, so it's really hard to write this. I'm just like really making stuff off the top of my head without any kind of like, this is basically me writing a full resume with no, you know, with no information. I need more information. So I'll just do this one, and then I'll just tell her, hey, look, need more information like this. Okay, on 15 critical systems, and let's say potentially saving the organization thousands of dollars of damage. Removed, and this is an opportunity to like show like that you know the process of not only identifying, but how to actually quarantine, remove, isolate, respond, incident handling. So you want to like, this is an opportunity for you to show that you know incident handling. Let's get rid of this misspelling here. Let's say reported quarantine. Let's say quarantined, removed, and reported the malware in accordance with organization's policy, incident handling policy, incident handling policy. So okay, so here let me just explain like why I put all this stuff in here. What we're doing is we're tying the thing that she did. So she says she removed a malware. What was the impact of that? The impact is that we removed first of all, what exactly did we do? Removed malware. Let me move this comment. That doesn't make any sense. On 15 critical systems, potentially saving the organization. Here's the impact. Potentially saving the organization. No, not potentially. Let's say saving. And how would you know how much it saved? Well, if you did a business impact analysis, you might be able to identify how much it would have saved the organization. Or if you know it was a critical server, let's say if it was on a DNS server and it's going to take out the network for X amount of hours, you could calculate, you could have a rough calculation of how much thousands of dollars would have been lost in the time that this system would have had to switch to another system or something. You can guesstimate how much loss and damage might have been done on this. So that's one way you could calculate it. 15 critical systems saving the organization thousands of dollars of damage, quarantined, removed, and reported the malware in accordance with the organization's this is going to be possessive organization's incident handling policy. And so now I'm just going to explain to her like why I put all this stuff in here and like what's the idea behind what I'm trying to do here. Because what I'm trying to do is go into detail about the action completed. And then you want to show impact of the action on the organization. And the reason why you're doing this is to show that this is something that had an impact on the organization. You're showing that you have value and you're going to bring this same value to another organization. You know, when somebody reads this, they're going to be like, wow, I want somebody to do the same thing to my organization. So that's why you want to show the impact. Another thing is when you go into detail, it allows you to do things like putting more keywords in there, keywords and key phrases. One of the keywords and phrases is incident handling. Policy is another one. Of course, malware, you know, so you want to put as many, and you could also have put semantic and what kind of tools you use. You want to put as many in there as possible because that's more keywords you're going to put in there. You're going to do the same thing with assisted in evaluating security controls. You're going to do the same thing with evaluated threats and conducted security scanning. This actually is like 2 or 3 different breakouts. If you go into detail about your security scanning, what scanner did you use? Did you use Nessus? How many systems did you scan? What tool did you use? What did you discover? What kind of analysis did you do? You want to go into that level of detail on your resume to show that you really did it and put as many keywords as possible. Another thing is that she has a Security Plus. This needs to be on the top. If you have a Security Plus, you want to put that right up here, Security Plus, because you want to put your top certification on the top. Your strongest certification should be up here somewhere. Boom. Another thing is I need more detail. All of this needs more detail. So I'm just going to go ahead and tell her, hey, need more detail. Need more detail and impact. So that's what I would do. And these other items here, these should probably be down here. I mean, the thing is, what it is she has nursing assistant up top. She has hospice aide up top. You want to put the thing that you're going for, which is your technical skills, up top. You might not even want to put that you're a CNA on this one. I remember I used to be a cop. I used to put it on my resume all the time. But the thing is, if that criminal justice degree doesn't bring anything to the rest of my resume, why am I putting it on there? So that's something another thing that you probably want to do is not put. If you drilled or you a welder or something, how's that help your IT experience? So those are just a few tips that I would bring to the table on that. I mean, I really need more details here. I mean, you've got to get more. If you happen to listen to this, Taylor, like you have to put more in here. And if this is the only experience you have, 3 months, that's not enough. You got to go out and get some entry-level positions, do some volunteer work. You got to do more because this is not enough. All right. I have another resume, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover that one later on. Right now, I want to go into something I started creating, a little course to start creating that I think might be helpful to some folks out there who are IT folks, who are risk management framework folks. I'm going to talk a little bit about privacy. I'm not going to go in super great detail. I just want to give you a preliminary overview of what I'm covering and give you an idea of what's to come. All right, so let's get into this. Here it is right here. And let me give you an overview here. So whenever I've showed the privacy, this is the NIST control families, first of all. And you'll notice that the NIST control families has this one right here. If you've ever seen this diagram here, these are both for, this top one is the NIST revision 4. This one down here is NIST revision 4, where they were transitioning into 5, and that's why you see a little bit more control families here. But this one they recently changed. Individual participation. And so they changed it from Rev 4 that had IP and SE and TR. These are individual participation, which includes things like consent, security, transparency, and use limitations and things like that. And they kind of combined them all into transparency, PII and transparency, PT, which is personally identifiable information, and transparency. And this has to do with processing personally identifiable information and protecting personally identifiable information. What is personally identifiable information? All right, I can explain that. And this will make a little bit more sense to you once I explain it. Personally identifiable information is your name. It includes things like your social security number, of course, your date of birth. Can be your mother's maiden name. These are things that they might ask you at a bank to confirm. It can be your address, your phone number, your email, your work email. All these things that tie back to you, that identify you personally. Those are PII, or personally identifiable information. Now, why is that important? In a nutshell, very quickly, I can explain why. Okay. The reason why that stuff is important to protect is that it's a huge target for malicious hackers who are doing reconnaissance to find the weakest link in your organization. So what they do is they're looking for emails. They're looking for your first and last name on the internet. They're going on the internet and looking to see what job you work for. Let's say you work for Comcast. You're a HR person at Comcast. They're gonna look for your work email, right? George Smith at Comcast.com or .org or whatever it is. They're gonna look for your full name, George Smith. They're gonna look for what department you work in, George Smith HR Resources Office. They're going to look for your phone number. Maybe they can call you on the phone and do a little bit of social engineering. They want to gather as much information on people as possible. The reason why is because people are the weakest link in an organization. It's easier to hack the people and find out how to manipulate those people to give you a password or to click a link that's going to download software that's going to be malicious code, a Trojan or a virus or something like that, than it is to try to hack a Cisco ASA firewall, for example. So people are the weakest link. Now, if you doubt what I'm saying here, consider this. A few years back, around 2016, a state-sponsored organization hacked the DNC. DNC is the Democratic National Committee, something like it. It's the Democratic. The Democrats have an organization where they gather money and gather constituents and promote their campaigns for senators and Congress and whatever, right? It's a political party here in the U.S. And the GOP has one. That's the other party that we have here, which is the Republicans. Every country has something similar to this. The DNC was hacked by a state-sponsored organization. Do you know how they got in? This is publicly available information, by the way. Okay? Look it up for yourself. The way they got in was they did some reconnaissance, found out the person's work email, the person's name, and they did a spear phishing attack to get somebody who was an administrator to give them rights to allow them to get into the system. That's how they got in. So they literally hacked the PII by probably just Googled it. I mean, literally, there's so much information out there. They probably just Googled it, probably signed up for one of their websites, gathered as much information as they could on some of the inner workings of the DNC, and that's how they got in. They were able to get sensitive emails, not classified, sensitive emails that were within the campaign. They were able to get sensitive files. They were able to get all this stuff, by the way, is on WikiLeaks. You can actually literally, so what they did was they hacked it. It's brilliant. They hacked the system, downloaded all the stuff, all the information. They put it up on WikiLeaks. You could read it to this day. I think John Podesta's email to about UFOs is on there. John Podesta, who was going to be one of the campaign, I think he was one of the campaign managers for Hillary Clinton, was going to be actually on her staff, was talking about UFOs. I'm not making this up. Go to WikiLeaks, read it for yourself. All their emails are there. They leaked all their information on there, and it created a firestorm. Might even cause them the election. So, yeah, the way they got in was personally identifiable information. That's why it's super important for every organization to protect this stuff. Now, let's go back to the screen here. When you're talking about federal systems, they have a bunch of controls that you're supposed to meet in order to protect the personally identifiable information. Starting from the top, your organization should have a policy and procedure. You should have an authority to process personally identifiable information. And normally what they'll have is like a CPO or a privacy czar or a privacy manager or some kind of authority that's backed by law, right? And that's all tied into your policy, by the way. Personally identifiable information processing purpose. You need to have a purpose of every system that's actually identifying personally identifiable information. Consent. Anytime you take customer, clients, or workers' information, you should have consent to actually get their personally identifiable information, particularly for customers and things like subscribers or whatever. If you're taking their name or whatever. Also, a privacy notice is something you probably have seen on many different websites, especially on federal or state websites, country websites. they'll have a privacy notice saying, hey, by the way, we're gathering your username, your first name, last name, but hey, we're not going to shop it around. We're going to keep it. We're going to protect it. That's what the privacy notice normally says. Unless it's Facebook, in which they're telling you, hey, we're going to do whatever the hell we want, and there's nothing you can do about it. Sign here. We're going to, you know what I mean? But federal government, they can't do that kind of stuff. You know, they're going to have a terms of service, but they have to protect by law, by federal law, they have to protect your information. There are repercussions whenever they lose a bunch of information. PT6 goes into System of Records Notice, or a SORN, where if you have a searchable database of all the personally identifiable information, then you have to put forward this statement that explains why it's searchable, what they're doing with the information. It's just a break that, and then you make that publicly available. It's a breakdown of the who, what, when, where, and why of the actual information. Now I want to take you real quick. I'm not going to go through each one of these. This is the course that I'm developing that will do that. I just want to very quickly show you what you need to do with privacy. So with privacy, it starts off with a privacy threshold analysis. This is determining if the system that you're looking at actually has privacy PII on it, and does it need to be, well, how do we need to treat this information? Now, if it doesn't have privacy information, if it doesn't have personally identifiable information, then you don't need to do anything else. Like this doesn't apply to it. But if it ever has this, if it's storing, processing, or disseminating any kind of PII information, then yes, you got to go to the next level, which is privacy impact assessment. Now, with privacy impact assessment, you're identifying the system and you're going through the who, what, when, where, and why of this privacy information that you have. Now, depending on how you are processing this information, you may need a system of records notice. And this is a kind of a deeper dive. This is where, like I said, you have a searchable, some kind of privacy identifier searchable records database where somebody could like literally type your name in and it'll come up with all your personally identifiable information. Then you need a SORN, which is a statement that's explaining why you have it, why it's searchable, what you're doing with the information, that kind of thing. So in a nutshell, that is privacy compliance, and that's what I'm going to be going through with this next course. The course, I haven't decided on a price or anything. I might even make part of it free, a great part of it free, because this is something that I really haven't seen a lot of people do this. I haven't seen people have any kind of breakdown of how do you do a privacy threshold analysis, how do you do a privacy assessment, how do you do a SORN, where are all the regulations and laws that actually prop up all of these things that a federal organization has to do, and maybe even some of the things that your organization, if you're a private organization, should be doing for your organization. You should be doing something like a privacy impact and assessment to figure out if you guys are doing everything correctly or if you need extra protection for people's personally identifiable information. Okay, I've got a few people watching me here. I got Tony Martin saying, I love assessing privacy controls, PIA and PTA. I'm in business. If you don't have it, your controls fail. Yeah, it's a really important piece, especially with your high-level organizations. Like if you're launching stuff into space, if you're dealing with people's social security numbers, if you are doing something that's critical, mission critical type stuff, you really do need to have some kind of a privacy process. You have to, like I said, look at the threshold. Like, does this system even have PII? Okay, we have PII. What is the impact to our organization if this stuff gets leaked? What is the impact to the person if it gets leaked? You need to deep dive into what goes on and how do we protect this information. So those are all the things that go into this whole process that I'm going to be breaking down a lot further in the coming future. So keep a lookout on for that. And actually, if I ever get it out there, it'll be in the description below. So go ahead and check that out on this video. All right. So I got Keenan R saying, is it possible to transition from a cyber SOC, Security Operations Center role, to a security compliance role? Yeah, absolutely, Keenan. Like, what I would do if I were you is you probably already have some experience in security compliance. It's funny, a lot of people don't realize that they actually have been doing some security compliance type stuff, and you just need to put it on your resume. Do you know anything about any kind of risk management frameworks? That includes not only NIST CyberSecurity framework or NIST 853 if you've ever applied different controls. If you've done incident responses, some of the stuff that you do in incident response are actually security controls that you're now implementing. For example, IR controls. I can actually show you here. Let me see if I can bring it up as I'm talking here. But IR controls are actually part of the NIST 800 standard. And so let me just show you what I'm talking about. And I'm sure you've done these if you're in SOC, if you've done any kind of security incident type responses. That is actually implementation of IR controls. Let me just see if I can find them. So here, let me show you here. If you've done any of these things, you definitely want to put them on your resume and start highlighting those things. The big thing is documentation, abiding by policy and laws, and understanding why that's important. A lot of security people don't understand why it's important to actually document, to actually. It's kind of funny because everything you do as a security person or as an IT person has to do with some sort of a standard and has to do with some kind of security control, but we don't even realize it. We just kind of, you just put, it's like it reminds me of the workers on the Death Star. Everybody is putting little pieces and parts together, but they don't even know that they're about to blow up, Alderaan. You know what I mean? Because you're just so in the weeds on your one little part. But as a security compliance person, you have to look at the entire Death Star. You know what I mean? So anyway, look at this. These IR controls, this is NIST 853. Starting from the top, this is IR1. This is dealing with the policies of incident response. And this is saying that the organization should have some kind of a policy or procedure that walks you through incident handling, incident response, things like that. And if you ever participated in writing this policy, now I know that as a compliance guy myself, I've had to reach out to my SOC team and say, hey guys, we're writing a policy on this. We're writing a procedure. It's been a while. I've been out of the loop. There might be some things that you guys know that I don't know, so I'll reach out to these subject matter experts, people like yourself, and say, listen, we're doing this procedure that we need for new people coming in. So I'll coordinate and work with them to actually help me to write the procedure for incident response. If you've ever helped out with that, you want to put that on your resume and say that you've assisted in security compliance, and here's how. Or you've assisted in writing a procedure or a policy for incident response or for the SOC. So you want to put that on your resume. Another thing would be if you've ever trained for incident responses or security incidents. That's another thing that you want to put on your resume to say, hey, I've assisted with training, because that's another thing that's kind of right in line with what we do as cybersecurity, security compliance people, is do training, write the training, help with the training, things like that. Incident response training is a part of NIST 853. So you could literally put, especially if you work in an environment where you're working for the federal government and you guys are doing NIST, or you're doing any kind of DOD or FBI or CIA, any of those 3-letter agencies, any of those are working with NIST 800. So you could literally put that on your resume that you've helped to train incident response, you could say something like created training for NIST 853 incident response for this or that organization. You could say something like that. And that way you're sneaking in that security compliance role jargon that they want to hear. Incident response testing, incident handling, all of these things are in line with the NIST 853. So what you want to do is just put that stuff right in your resume. You know, that's how you do it. You just have to highlight it. The thing is, like I said, the people that are in the weeds, the firewall guys, the people like yourself, the SOC people, you're kind of like this. You're only on, you're only looking at this one part. But as a security compliance person, we have to look at the entire picture. And so whenever we put stuff in our resume, it should be looking at, how does this impact the organization? What policy did I, because the reason why policies are important is because policy is affecting the organization, right? You're not just looking at, well, I work with ArcSight. I'm an ArcSight guy and I'm working on this SIEM, and it's not just about tools. It's about looking at the bigger picture. So you got to put that stuff on your resume, and that is how you would transition over, So put that on your resume. And he says, let me see. I'm learning them. I do incident responses every day. Yeah. So I'm sure you have a lot of exposure to a lot of stuff I just talked about, and you just want to put that stuff on your resume. And then put, I don't know if you work for the federal government, but if you do, then you definitely have had some interaction with 853. You want to put that kind of stuff in there. You want to put any kind of times you've written policies or procedures or any things like that where it's impacting the whole organization, what you want to put on your resume. Kevin of Fairfax says, what exactly makes a control hybrid? Is it when the system covers some of that control's CCIs while the other systems cover the other CCIs? Here's my understanding of a hybrid control. The way that let me see if I can get an image of it. I like to kind of explain this with like memes and images and stuff while I'm talking. So the way that I understand hybrid controls is their intersection with system level controls and common controls. So let me explain. So a system level control is very self-explanatory. It's a security control on the actual system. Excuse me. So for example, let's say we have a Linux system, right? And that Linux system needs to have identity management on it, identity and authorization on it. So we put PAM on it, and it's got maybe some MFA. It's got multi-factor authentication. That multi-factor authentication that forces a person to use an RSA key plus their fingerprint plus their retina scan plus their card reader. All of those things are security controls. So that's pretty easy to understand. Common controls. Common controls are controls that are done Common controls are done by the organization, so that let me give you a good example of a common control. It would be a physical control. So let's say the building, let's say the facility has no windows and it has a fence around it, and you have a card reader when you walk in, right? So the fencing around the building, like you need physical security, right? Like people sleep on that all the time, but without physical security, you really don't have security at all. So physical security would be a common control because it's controlled by the organization, and everybody who walks into that facility is now inherited that particular control. So you have your laptop, you walk into the facility, and the first thing they do is maybe they inspect your bag, they inspect your system, all that kind of stuff. All that whole process of walking into the fence, showing your badge, going in, getting checked by the security guards, all of that's physical security, and that's a common control. Everything that's in the facility has inherited that particular controls. There's other kinds of common controls, like policies are are common controls. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but this is my understanding of a common control versus a system control. System control is on a system. A common control is usually something that everyone inherits once they walk in the door. Everybody inherits it once they apply the policy. It can be technical too, because you can have common controls that, like a good technical common control would be like a baseline on an endpoint system could be a common control, because everybody who is jumping on a system is inheriting the policies that have been put and installed on that system already. Everybody is on what we used to call a gold disk. Like it's a system that has an image, and everybody has to use that same image. That could be considered a common control. It's also controlled usually by a common control provider. So it's two things. It's inherited by the organization and a common control provider. Another kind of department controls it, right? So in the example of my physical security, let's say there's a third party security team called BlackRock, and that BlackRock is an organization who controls the fencing, they control the badging system, and they control the entry in, and they check people's bags, and that whole thing, everybody who walks in has to go through BlackRock, and they're the common control provider. So if you want documentation from them, if you want to change something, you got to go to BlackRock, the common control provider, and say, hey guys, like we need to change this policy of searching the bags because of this or that, right? So system level control, that's on a computer, right? It's installed, it's a security control on that particular system. And if it's on Linux, it's probably going to be a little bit different from Windows. It's specific to a system. Common control is something that you can inherit. It can be a policy. It can be technical as well, but as long as it's like got a common control provider and it's inherited by everyone who walks in the building, everybody who touches that system. Hybrid is a combination between the two. Now, let me explain. An example of a hybrid control might be the badge reader when you walk in the door. Here's the reason why I say that. Because the badge readers often have to be controlled by more than one organization. It has to be controlled by BlackRock, the physical security guys, right? And it also might have to be controlled by the local organization, a common control provider that's there on site who has to make sure that, okay, BlackRock just stopped our commander from coming into the facility. That's not good. We gotta fix this. And then maybe they have like a system where they're monitoring people who are coming into the facility. So actually, it's a cross section between your system level controls, where it's controlled by that inner organization, and a third party. The BlackRock, the third party organization. So it's both, and it can also be inherited, but also is controlled by that local organization. I hope that makes sense. And I'm still trying to find an example of a hybrid control. I got a couple of ideas here, and these are not what I wanted to see here. That's the way I understand hybrid controls. Is they're a combination between common and system security controls, because that badging system is a system. It's a technical system that is right there on site that needs to be controlled locally, but it's also needing a third party common control provider. So still looking for an visual example of a common control. A hybrid control. I hope that makes sense. Maybe that's more confusing. Kevin Fairfax says, so a common control needs to have a provider system. Yeah, often like you have a common control provider. Like you have another, like it's so big. Like here, the way I think of it is like this. It's normally something it's something that's affecting the whole enterprise, the whole organization. So normally you have another party who has to control it. Like it's either a department or it's a group of people who one of their primary functions is to do that one job. because it's something that's affecting everyone. So in the example that I gave about the baseline control of the gold disk of everybody who has the workstations, that everybody has this image of the workstation, that's normally controlled by like endpoint, some team, like a help desk team, that's all they do is focus on making sure that this is the most up to date version of the image, and they're going out fixing the image if it's broken or whatever, or they're wiping people's systems because they have a virus or something like that. Let me see. And you guys, if you guys have a different, better explanation of a hybrid control, please chime in. I will definitely read it, and I'll piggyback on what you're saying, because I really want to explain this. That is my understanding of a common control, but by no means is it the end all be all. Yeah, I'm really having trouble finding common control. Trying to find like a visual representation that will explain the differences. I've seen a couple. I've used a couple in my teachings system level. I'll find it in a second here. Okay, Keenan R says okay, this is a separate question, so I'm gonna save that one for you. Just give me a second to find this example of a hybrid control. Technical controls, administrator controls. Gonna find one in a second here. Give me a second to explain with a visual representation of a hybrid control. I'm seeing a couple examples. I just don't think that they're very good. So just bear with me here. I will find this dang thing. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any visual representations, but okay, here's a definition of it. A security control that is implemented in an information system, in part as a common control and in part a system specific control. So yeah, it's a combination of the two, basically. I mean, that's a better explanation than what I just said. It's a combination between a common control and a system specific or system level control. So that the system that I explained, where it's the badging, the actual badging system, because the badging system would have to be controlled by a common control. Everybody who enters the door is getting hit with that badging system, but at the same time, it's a local system specific control that that's connected to a database, and it's attached to an actual system. So that is, that was a good example, I thought. Another good example would be the PIV reader, the actual, if you've ever had a smart card, the actual smart card system might also be considered a hybrid, because that system is normally controlled by a third party, and it's also connected to the actual system, the actual computer that you're putting the card in. It has those two components that make it a hybrid. A system specific control that will work on a Mac a little bit different than it works on a PC, different than it works on a Linux and a Windows system. It's going to be slightly different specific control configurations, but on the back end, it's also a common control that is controlled by the organization and hitting everybody. So I hope that I know I overdid it on that one, but that was a good question. Thank you, sir. Okay, Keenan says, is the certified information system auditor necessary to obtain a compliance role? No. Would it be appropriate to work to get towards a IT auditor position, then compliance role? I would say, honestly, Keenan, it depends on where you're at. It depends. So his question was, is the CISA, or the certified by Osaka, it's called the Certified Information System Auditor. Very good certification, by the way. Very, very lucrative certification that many auditors and assessors get, especially in the financial space. He says, is it necessary to get that for a compliance role? No, it's not. There's a couple of other better ones, but it kind of depends. Like if you're in the financial space, it's a really good one to get, actually. Let me back up a little bit. It depends on what industry you're in. Because I can tell you this, in the Department of Defense, the one you want to get if you want to be there's a couple in defense, in global security industry, in the federal government. They look very highly upon, in this order: CISSP, the CASP has risen to prominence. The CAP is good. The CAP, the ISC2 squared CAP, is a good one for federal government. Now, I haven't started talking about the other industries, but I'll get to those. And then for compliance, probably Security Plus. Security Plus is not a bad one for compliance, with a bachelor's degree on all those, by the way. Bachelor's or master's degree on all those. In some kind of a STEM. It can be science, technology, math, and of course computer sciences. Any one of those will do. All right, so and they're very specific because they have something called the Cyber Workforce documentation, where they break all those down specifically for compliance and auditors and all of that. In the federal government, for an auditor, the ones that they look to is a CISA. That's actually a good one specifically for auditors. Another one is a CEH. They look at sometimes. And then I'm trying to think of there's another one I'm not thinking. CISM. There's another one that they look highly upon for auditors. And let me just show you what I'm talking about for that one before I go on to the financial sector. Okay, this one's called it's called CyberSecurity Workforce, and it's called at 8140. It used to be called 8570, but now it's 8140. And let me show you what I'm talking about. It's funny, it's like I'm the only guy talking about this, so I always pop up as like number one on my sites. I'm surprised. I mean, it's pretty hot. So, I mean, it's worked for me. I'll just put it to you that way, to go down this little path and to map a career out of this. You could literally map a career with using the cybersecurity workforce. And all of the let me show you my screen here. Many of the certification folks are using this. The certification people are using 8570 or 8140 cybersecurity workforce. But so these levels here are explaining what certifications that they recommend for each level and each role and things like that. And so I was talking about auditor. So this is actually updated. They do have CISA on the newer list, but here it is right here. CEH is one of them. Let me see. CIS. No, CISA is on one of these. Okay, here it is. IAT level 2. And this is not the newer one. The newer one I thought had auditor here, but I could be wrong. But yeah, here's just an example of if you're an analyst, this is the federal side, by the way. Now, if you're trying to go into, what industry are you in, by the way? You gotta tell me what industry. I could probably help you out. I could tell you this. In the financial space, like if you work for the IRS or if you work for Price Waterhouse or JP Morgan or any of those guys, they look at the CISSP very highly. They also look at the CISA, CISM. Those are highly sought after with those guys. And I don't know what other certs that they really. CRISC, I think, is another one. CRISC from Osaka is a good one. I noticed that they look at a lot. And then your other part of your question was, is it necessary? Yeah, so it depends on what industry you're going to, I would say. For federal, I can speak highly on, I could speak on federal because I've been doing it for so long. And I could say CISA is something that you would want to do for auditors. And then your other question was, would it be appropriate to work towards IT audit position, then compliance role? And I would say it depends on where you're at. Where you're at in experience. If you've done a lot of assessments, meaning you're in a SOC position, but you have done some assessments on systems, like meaning you've ran some scans on systems and you had to analyze that scan information and you had to evaluate whether or not this system needs to be how it needs to be fixed and what priorities that you need to fix it. That is a lot of experience in assessments and auditing. And if you've done things like that, I would suggest going into auditing. If you have done policies and you've written procedures and things like that, then maybe you want to go into the compliance side. Compliance side is dealing with interpretation of security controls that need to be implemented and writing policy and the direction of the company and their security posture and things like that. Fancy words for policies, procedures, documentation, and making sure that the security on the systems is in accordance with the company's policy. Auditing is a little different. It's where you're assessing the vulnerabilities and the risk to the organization. And then you document the risk to the organization. And then so those are two different things. It depends on what you have done in your line of work. And you said that I'm in mass media entertainment industry. Mass media entertainment. I don't really know anything about that industry. I gotta be honest. I don't know nothing about that industry. You say you have a security plus with no degree. One way that I have been able to do research on an industry. Let me just kind of show you my screen a little bit. How do I do research on industries? Experience, I've been in personally federal space, private space, in telecommunications space, aerospace engineering, the sciences, like pure science type stuff, making sure that their computers are good and that they're meeting policy. Those are the main industries I've done. I have not gone outside of those. A little bit of healthcare, a little recently, and a little bit of financial recently. Manufacturing too, a little bit recently, but mostly it's federal. But let me show you how I actually look up other industries. So this right here is my LinkedIn. So what you can do if you were following along with me is look at what is in demand for mass media entertainment. Entertainment, if I could spell. And look up what it is people are really looking for. Law, I'm sure law is really big in that industry because they're dealing with artists and stuff like that, right? Film industry, film production. I'm kind of looking for like what kinds of things they're looking for. I'm looking for the kinds of jobs that are out there that seem hot. Call center representative, director of interior. So this is telling me information right here. It's telling me that what their needs are, like what needs are out there as far as jobs. And what I normally do here, and you can do this on dice.com, you can do this on many different sites to see what's out there and look at the actual jobs and look at what the requirements are, what they're looking for. That way, what you're doing is you're researching what is the demand, so you can supply that demand. What are they looking for out there, so you know, okay, they're really looking for auditors, or they're really looking for this, or they're looking for that, And right now I'm not seeing a lot of technical jobs in there. Okay, software engineering. Here's another software engineering. And I think maybe I'm looking at the wrong. This is probably not the right terminology, I think, because there should be lots and lots of stuff for this. Mass media, let me see. Account manager. So I'm looking for the supply for technical people is what I'm doing here. Teacher, broadcast, digital marketing, digital media manager. Okay. Virtual opportunities. So not a whole lot of IT, but I'm sure there's some. Sports, marketing, a lot of marketing. Technical account manager. I don't even know what that is. Technical account manager. Is this somebody who hires people? Technical account manager. That's what it sounds like to me. Mass media market. So yeah, I would research what jobs are out there and what they're looking for, unless you're trying to go into a completely different industry. And if that's the case, let's say you were trying to go into telecommunications. Okay. Telecommunications is probably a better terminology. Telecommunications. Mass. Okay. In fact, let's just say telecommunications. Okay, we should have a lot more technical jobs here. Coordinator, business analyst. Okay, some field technician type jobs. I'm sure there's tons of those out there. So this is what I do. I look at what is in demand out there and I see if I can meet that demand. Like, let's say I was interested in this. Test analyst, and I would look at, okay, what kind of skills is this particular job looking for? And they're saying required skills is SIT testing, smoke regression, I don't even know what that is, ORT, telecom billing. Yeah. Look at stuff like this to get an idea of what's going on, what do they need, and then start targeting that market. But I'm not seeing anything. And you know why? This is just not my market. That's why I just don't know what to type in. Mass media, telecommunications media. Technical security analyst. Let's see what this is on dice.com. Dice is a really good resource, by the way. Dice is a leading career, blah, blah, blah. Oh, this is literally at Dice, working for Dice remotely. Wow, look at this. Stigs, benchmarks. Holy crap. What kind of job is this for Dice? Oh, man. Wow, that's pretty impressive. Literally working for dice.com. Yeah, so anyway, first step would be go through LinkedIn, go through dice.com, go through monster.com, look at your market. Like, what are you trying to do in this market? Because I don't know that there's a lot of, and I don't know, this is just showing my ignorance in mass media. But I don't know that there's a lot of assessors in this field. I wouldn't know. You know what I mean? I just wouldn't know. But you, having been in this industry as a SOC person, you know the terminology, you know the keywords, you know your market way better than I would, an outsider. So you use your keywords to figure out what is needed in that market. And then that will give you an idea of what you need to aim for and what certifications you need to have to level up. Because that's what you're trying to do, right? You're trying to level up, and you've mentioned either doing either auditor or compliance. So you actually, your industry might not even call it compliance and auditing. I know some industries call it a completely different name. In federal space, a lot of times they call it assessors. security control assessors. They don't really call it auditors. It means the same thing, but in the financial sector, they call it auditing. Auditors, they use that word a lot because auditing, right? Auditing money. So that's the term that they know for security. So yeah, whatever terminology and words that that your industry uses, you got to use those those keywords to actually dig deeper to figure out what is necessary to level up. That's normally what I do. I know that that's one of the things that I did to go to. I went from doing compliance to doing SOC work. Actually, I went from compliance to SOC work. This was many years ago. I had to change locations. I had to take a job where I was no longer a SME. I was more like a junior level person learning. And I had to learn a whole bunch of new things, but I was willing to do it because I really wanted to do SOC work, and I ended up doing it for a couple years, and I liked it. Actually, I had a lot of fun. It was very technical. I really liked it for a while, and it was shift work, all that kind of stuff, and I still liked it. But then I went back to my roots of doing compliance and now doing assessing and auditing and stuff like that. So I hope that conversation was helpful. I'm about an hour in, guys, so I'm about to kill this one, and appreciate everybody who contacted me. I'm going to end this with a stream killer, which is looking through somebody's resume. People, the individual I'm looking at their resume is always thrilled, but nobody wants to watch it. But that's fine. We're going to go ahead and look at a resume real quick, and then I'll end it that way. So this next resume is actually somebody who's been in the industry for a longer period of time, and I changed the name to protect the innocent. This is Will P. And I took the liberty of putting the name of his job up here, and I don't know if this is what if he wanted, but I kind of skimmed through what he's doing here, and it sounded to me like a information system security officer, so I put it here. Location, number, email comes next, and he put an active government clearance. That's cool. What I would do here is I would just go ahead and put what it was. Secret or whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but I'll put it right in there. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but I've been doing that for years, so maybe the FBI is watching me or something. I don't know, but I usually put my clearance right here. Now, if you've taken my course, I break down like how I'm able to protect my privacy. I usually use a pseudonym or some kind of alias for my actual name. I don't put my actual phone number. I use a different email. I use like a business phone number. I have a separate phone line. There's things that you can do to get a free one. You can get a free number from a free number from Google. Google has Google Voice, and they do free numbers and stuff. So I usually do that. Those are just a couple of things that I do so that they can't use my own privacy information against me. I do the same thing on Facebook, by the way, which is outside of the scope of what we're talking about here. But that's some of the things that I do on my course. If I could just show you real quick my course to give you an idea of that one. It's pretty slept on, but it's one that I continue to use, and it continues to pay me. I'm never without a job. I've continued to be employed because this is the method that I use. I market the hell out of myself. So basically, it's taking your resume, writing it the correct way, putting keywords in it, and then marketing the ever-living hell out of it. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. That's my course. If you're interested in it, go check it out. I can even give you a discount. Just ask me. Okay, so anyway, let's keep going with this. This is the first time I've seen this, that I've read through this part. I kind of changed all this stuff because I don't want to put my man's personal information out there. So he says, professional summary. He says, I have extensively worked in organizations where I have an active involvement in setting up processes, frameworks, and implementing controls to make sure our various systems, networks, devices, and softwares Let me fix that. Software conforms to security best practices. Yeah, so I don't see anything wrong with putting these statements up top, but it's a really good opportunity to put as many keywords as possible. So that's normally how I use it. I don't put like these blanket statements. You don't want to waste a minute any time on your resume. You want to get as much impact as possible. So I wouldn't just put frameworks. I'd put the framework I'm using. I put FedRAMP. Here's what I would do. I would say, okay, I've extensively worked in organizations. Okay, right there. This is a general statement. I would put what organizations I've worked for. So he's worked for Cyber Data Technologies. I don't know if these are what kinds of organizations these are. Communications. Looking like telecommunications and cyber data technologies. I would put the type of organizations. I would put telecommunications and other organizations. So you just want to, it's an opportunity to use a keyword. So I just want to put here to tell them that use keywords in the summary. Just my 2 cents of what I would do personally is use those in the summary. And other organizations. Like if he worked for also telecom and aerospace, I would put it in there. And in fact, I'm just going to go ahead and aerospace and other organizations, right? So now we got a couple more keywords in there. And if it was like a high level organization like NASA or like FBI or something, I'll put it right in there too. Okay, where I was actively involved in setting up processes, frameworks. Okay, we're gonna put some frameworks in there, such as let's say, what did he say? FedRAMP. He said FedRAMP, FISMA. No, let's see here. No, he said one here. I thought he said FedRAMP. Risk management framework. Let's say that. Frameworks such as risk management framework and implementing, let's say the type of control, NIST 8. You see what I'm doing here? I'm putting as many keywords as possible in here. It's not illegal, but it should be, because this dude's about to get hella jobs from these little tricks. And implementing NIST 853 controls to make sure our various systems, and I would put type I would say our critical systems, networks, and devices. You might even want to put, just for the sake of actually putting some more keywords, Cisco networks. I mean, you don't normally use that in a sentence, but we're gonna do it just for the sake of putting the word Cisco in there. Cisco networks, devices, and software conform. That's okay. Yeah, I gotta get rid of the S there. Software conform to security best practices. Yep. Okay, that's a little better. I mean, we got a couple keywords in there. I'd probably stuff way more in there and take time to do that, but it is what it is. So the rest of this is actually looking pretty solid. Professional experience. Let's see. Support the risk management framework, the risk management team, and office of blah, 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 and health and human services, health services by performing tasks associated with national institution. Okay, that's good. That's more keywords. That's good. I would not change that. Okay, and then he goes into risk management FISMA analyst. Okay, that's his title. Okay, so computer security. Okay, I would change computer security specialist to cybersecurity. It's just a buzzword, you know. It means the same thing. I don't think this is a lie. I mean, cybersecurity. It's just a buzzword that's being used. So instead of computer security, I'd say cybersecurity specialist. Means the same thing, even if at the actual organization they called you a computer specialist. Cyber security means the same thing as computer security. Specialist. All right, it's a little trick to get some keywords in there. Next part is support vulnerability management team. Okay, that's really good. By compiling and tracking vulnerabilities and mitigating results of Nessus. This is another opportunity to put more Nessus. See what I'm doing? I'm putting very specific tools that way. And I don't know what tool this was. I mean, I don't know. And I'm just going to put in here, put the tool used. Put the tool, the scanning tool that was used. That way, that comes up as a keyword. Nessus. Mitigation, vulnerability and mitigation results of Nessus. Right? Nessus vulnerability scanner. Tenable, actually. Tenable, let's say, Tenable Nessus, whatever the hell it's called. I don't know. Vulnerability scanner. Scanner. Right? If it was Qualys, put that. If it was whatever it was, put that in there. Specific. And that's actually a keyword that somebody's going to research. They're like, hey, I want somebody with experience with Nessus, and so they'll put that in there. And when they're searching. So the idea behind it, what you got to keep in mind is that most of these people who are looking for jobs, most of the people who are looking for employees, I should say, are technical recruiters, HR people who don't necessarily know our craft. They're not SMEs. They don't know what we do. So they're just putting in keywords that the company told them to put in. So that one of those keywords might be Nessus. Hey, we want somebody who knows how to use Nessus, right? And so they'll put that in there and searching for a person who knows Nessus. They'll put that in there, and then your resume will pop up because you had that keyword in your resume. So the name of the game is keywords, technical specific things that you've done, and the more you put in there, the more your resume is going to be loved by the search engines, because the name of the game is search engines. You're going to be putting your data in a search engine, whether it's LinkedIn's search engine, whether it's Google's search engine, or Dice.com search engine, or Monster, or name the job the job aggregator. That's where all these people are going to look for you. So you got to put those keywords in there so that it pops up in the actual algorithm. All right, guys, that's it for this one. Thanks a lot. Somebody said, when do you go live? Kevin, I normally go live every Saturday. I don't have a specific time. Maybe I should. But one of these days I'll nail down a specific time. But just if you go to YouTube, turn on notifications, or better yet, go to ConvoCourses, sign up for that. I'm going to be putting all kinds of new stuff out there. So go there. If you go to those two places, you will find my new content. You will find me on lives. And I will see you guys on the next one. Thanks a lot for watching.